Jason joined our team in 4 months. Yeah. So Jason's home is in Lake Ozark, Missouri. He grew up on a farm in southern Illinois, worked for Pioneer as an agronomist for 7, 8 years, was it? And then got into the crop insurance business. Jason and I have known each other for 4 or 5 years at least. More than that. Yeah. He's an out-of-the-box thinker. He's an agronomist by trade, and he's joined our team to help us with the agronomy piece. As we've grown, agronomy is something we know we have to help our growers with. We're not trying to displace the local agronomist, but we're trying to help growers understand what does it take to go from 200 bushel to 300 bushel. That's not an easy transition. And so Jason's going to share some of the things we're looking at.
So again, Jason Maschhoff. I'm grateful to be with NutraDrip. I'm grateful to be here to talk with you guys today. My goal as an agronomist has always been to bring things that we can apply in the field at the farmer level to make them money, their investment. There's research agronomists out there that love looking at things, finding things, new technologies. I've always spent my time wanting to be alongside a farmer and help them do better on their farm, whatever their goal is. As I'm here with NutraDrip, that is part of my goal. And my presentation today is going to focus around some of that. And hopefully those that are experienced with drip irrigation, you'll gain a few things. Those that are new, I hope we can help you get excited about putting one in and knowing that we're going to be alongside you to help you be successful. So, fair enough? So we're going to talk about putting agronomy in action. You'll see action and agronomy frequently through my presentation. So I posed this question the other day, is agronomy a noun or a verb? Anybody English majors? None. Me neither. Not very good at it. It's a noun. It's utilizing the science of soil and crop management, right? But when I think about agronomy, it's an action, it's a verb. Everything that we're doing, the things you're learning about, is we want to put those in action, put them in the field, invest in growing a better crop to be more profitable, right? So I want you to think about action. And I want you to always think about how NutraDrip has been there doing agronomy and how we want to continue to be there alongside you in the agronomy effort. So I'm going to review some of the practices that we're currently doing, some that we're testing, and try to get you excited about putting some of those into action into 2024, okay? Because we look to bring some new agronomy solutions to work alongside with you to make you more successful. That's my goal. I'm going to talk about some old basic things we've known forever, but I'm going to just give some reminders out there through a growing season. And as I mentioned before, NutraDrip's always done agronomy. They're here to help. We're just going to try to bring another layer and another level of service to you as our clients. And Kurt talked about and Tim talked about the fertigation piece. That is such a valuable piece to this system, and we want to keep reiterating that. So I'm going to start with the finish, okay? So here's what I want to come across for everybody today. We want to help you put more action in your agronomy, okay? I hope, I'm going to put this up at the end, that you'll want to text agronomy. Text this number, 877-650-0827, and put agronomy in there and text it to us. I want to connect with you, and I want to be able to talk more about the specific solutions that we're going to roll out in addition to what we're doing in 2024. They're not all perfectly fine-tuned yet. So I want you to text this number at the end, be excited about connecting with us, and then we're going to look forward to talking with you about it. So I'm starting with the finish. All right, so what am I going to touch on today? I'm just going to break it down into preseason, in-season, postseason. These are some of the things we are doing with our clients now, and some of the things we're evaluating, like Kurt mentioned, to bring to you hopefully next year. I have the 4th season of winter break in there. Is there a winter break to farming anymore? I'll propose maybe you get a week here at the end. That's what I'm going to do today. So let's just talk a little bit about the preseason. So I did one bad thing here. I put a bunch of words and a bunch of bullet points on a slide, right? If you read anything about presentations, less is more, right? So I've already screwed up my presentation by putting all these bullet points. But part of that is for a reason. The preseason component, the planning, is as big of a portion of agronomy as acting in the field during the season. There's so much we can do to think about our goals, how we're going to do it, analyze data to make the in-season portion a little bit better. I've listed some things. I'm not going to go through them all, but we'll just touch on one. Number one is install SDI, right? That's our goal. We want you to get excited about doing that and considering it. So there's a little sales piece in there. Call me a sales agronomist, right? That used to be one of my titles. But that is the goal. And obviously everybody's yield goal is different. So when we want to interact with you that are considering systems, like Kurt said, you don't have to have one yet, or ones that do, we need to define what our goal is. We need a roadmap. For some people, it is the top yield possible. Others is they don't have the water, so we're trying to make it the most efficient use of the water to get the best overall yield. For manure management, their goal might not be yield. It might be managing the manure. The yield might not mean anything to them. So we have to clearly define what your goal is so we can benefit you on that. Compile data. I started about 4 months ago. It was a little hard thing to do to get with clients this year to be more successful in helping them. But you have all this data. We want to be part of that data that you guys have. But it helps us analyze for a plan. But if we have some of that data that you'll provide to us, we might not need it for the plan, but in the middle of that growing season, there might be something we want to grab. We want to be able to help you. You're busy. But if we have the option to take some of that data, trust us with it, we want to have that for both putting the plan together as well as being active and efficient to help you in the heat of it in the growing season. Test water quality. I'm going to pass that on to the next talk, but the benefit of making sure before we start into a growing season, we understand the water quality for the drip system and your spray water. It could be tying things up and you're wasting that product that you're putting that in there with it. Evaluate genetics. We're not a seed dealer. We all understand genetics and the benefits to yield. But one thing we've seen this year working with some more biological related products is we can maybe affect leaf structure of a corn plant to be more photosynthetically placed, to gain energy, to get more through the profile of the plant. Genetics play a big role into trying to achieve those yields, and interesting enough, we do have products that might be able to help us do that in season with a high-yielding hybrid that doesn't have that stature. All right, ground and planter prep. This is an old piece that we've heard for a long time, but I think it gets overlooked. The value of an even emerging crop sets the stage for optimum yields. If we dropped 34,000 and we end up with 29,000 out there, that's hard to go in and fix. That's not a stand we might destroy. So taking the time, evaluate that planter, make sure the ground preps properly is going to set the stage for efficiently and effectively using your drip system to get those yields that you want. How do you monitor soil moisture? Tim's done a great job, and he's got way more experience on soil moisture probes than I do, but that is something we value as a tool to help you. And I'm going to show a couple slides from that on how we interacted with some growers with those. And I wanted you to realize with what they've told you is when we set you up to work with you on the agronomy side, we can have access to see that data along with you. With that technology, we have a login to where we can look at that probe on a daily basis, or if you can't, it is something that we can actively engage with you on. And that is an important piece for success, as we feel. Imagery. Tim's talked about imagery. I'm going to show you a couple slides as well. You know, if nothing else, we can have the same imagery as you on your farm, and we can help direct scouting. We can help do things that'll get you in the field to validate some of those things. I got a couple slides on that as well. So this whole preseason time is creating a management plan. We got to have something to shoot from, but you got to remain flexible in the growing season. The value of a drip irrigation system is you can be flexible on lots of things. The fertigation piece is something that allows you to be flexible. But let's have a groundwork to consider, or at least have that plan in place. We have a starting point to work from. And be ready for in-season soil and tissue testing. And I'll show a little bit more on that. Kurt talked about the value of this tissue and soil testing. I just wanted to at least show you our partners with Agronomy 365, where we send our data. This is what at least a baseline getting in the field sampling program looks like. For corn, you'll see that there'd be at least 6 tissue samples in the season. And then there's 3 indicator soil samples. As Kurt said, we're doing both in season. We feel, again, as you think about the puzzle of agronomy, this is an important piece that we want to help walk through with you. And when you partner with us in Agronomy 365, we have access to those data points as well. When your tissue tests come back, we'll see them the same time you do. And it helps us evaluate and bring action to these things in the field. And I'm happy to share some of these later with you if you want to take a closer look. So here's an interesting piece from a Pioneer Crop Insights about late season uptake of nutrients. So as you're putting a nutrient or just a plan together for the growing season and you're thinking about your nutrients, this chart shows how much accumulation of the nutrients noted below are still being uptaken at the R4 to R6 growth stage of a corn plant. So we're deep into the reproductive stages, approaching harvest not too far with an R4 to R6 corn plant. If you take carbon, nitrogen, you're looking anywhere from 20 to even 30% additional uptake of these nutrients late in the season. How beneficial is that drip irrigation system to be able to do some of this, evaluate your soil and tissue samples, visually inspect the field, and be able to bring some of those nutrients in late in the season? It's a pretty impressive thing to do. Data supports the benefit of that. So this is a BW Fusion slide. Sean, a little picture up in the corner. This was from a presentation he did. And this is, again, part of the planning piece that we'd want to walk through with you. They're showing that the conversion of nitrogen, depending on the form that you're using to bring it to a usable, uptakeable product in the plant, takes energy. And they're saying at any given time it requires 17% of the total energy to complete that process. Okay? So one of the things we talk and complain about is, can we use a different type of nitrogen, like a urea? And we can eliminate some of that conversion process and save energy in the corn plant late in the season at a very critical time. Does that make sense? Again, the value of the fertigation piece of this drip system will allow us to plan for this. Or if we have to react for something that happened, we have an option to do so. Again, these all kind of go into the planning portion. Okay. So I'm going to switch to in-season. We're going to run through some of the things we've been doing. That's when I joined NutraDrip, and it's been fun to learn along the way. We're obviously putting that plan into action, right? Obviously, we want to start up that SDI system. And again, I brought that in there for the point that is a service that NutraDrip will provide. If you're considering a drip system, don't fear that you're standing there and having to figure that out. We are walking alongside with you in the field, helping you get that system going. Assessing stands. We talked a little bit about this, but this is the time. I'm going to ask you to do it again late season, but this part of the year we're going to see how even is that emergence. Evaluate that planter performance. If we didn't get the stands that we want to adjust our yield goal. When we work with Agronomy 365 for our soil and tissue samples, when we run reports, we can put yield goals in there. and help bring out data that says we need to be considering this amount of nutrients. We always want to be assessing what is our potential based on what we've got out in the field. Scouting. I'll talk about some imagery again. Take pictures and notes. Get pictures, videos frequently every week from clients, and that is a huge piece. Log those. Have a place to be doing that, because at the end of the year, we need to go back and reassess. The more data points we have, the better we can reevaluate to get you into the next year. The soil moisture probe. We'll show some pictures of that. We're going to put that into action. Regular soil and tissue testing. So here's an action step for you now, and Kurt already mentioned that. There's still time, depending on where your crop is, to go get a soil or tissue sample in season. We might not be able to react to it for this growing season anymore, but that is a data point that we've logged, and we'll have that when we get to that time frame in the cycle next year. So don't dismiss the chance to get a few data points yet, because having more and having trends in your field and your crop is of huge value. Just a quick note, always do check strips if you're trying to evaluate something new. Again, that's getting to the ROI piece. Are we making money on this decision? And my last action step for this year is ear count assessment. So go out in your fields before harvest, strip those ears back, use 1/1000th of an acre like you're doing a stand, and assess consistency of ear type or ear size and ear height. Okay? That's a function potentially of planter. Maybe it's some genetic things, but we want consistent harvestable ears. Just because we got the plant up doesn't mean that plant provided a consistent harvestable ear that we wanted. Why did it not do that? Was there a disease issue? Was it a delayed plant? Became a weed? So do this now, and it'll help give you a better reflection on what your yield was. And then is there something I need to adjust maybe on the planting side? So assess your ear count visually currently. Thankfully, I can go through these pretty quick because you've seen some of these with Tim, the soil moisture probes. This is an actual soil moisture probe. This is from a customer of ours. We have access to his probe. We are watching his probe. We are having dialogues with him. Part of our service to walk alongside with you on moisture management. Okay? I can go through that. Some of these pretty quick. Kurt already talked about from the actual probe to the thermal imagery. Real excited about the tools that these could bring to our toolbox. Again, from another client this year, and we are watching these probes alongside them as well. Kurt did a good job explaining the value of these thermal imagery. Tim talked about NDVI and how do we use some of this imagery. I like to use NDVI for scouting purposes. If I can't be in the field or we can't be in the field, but we see something on that imagery, we can say, hey, go take a look at this area of the field. You might say, it's a wet hole. It's always going to look that way. No problem. But it's us giving an actionable item that we can discuss to help manage that field, and can we do something about it? Now with NDVI, you guys probably get this from Climate, your seed companies. This imagery is pretty common. But it is something we can use. It is a data point. The more data points, the better. When we switch to the virtual soil moisture probe from EarWatch, there's a layer we've been watching quite closely this year, which is soil water potential in the root zone. Okay? It is measuring where is the potential risk down the road a little bit. You tracking that? If you look at the NDVI imagery, this is August 14th from our client in Northeast Missouri. This is August 14th with the soil root zone potential. See the difference? Does it look the same? So NDVI is more of an actual. He just got an excessive amount of rain. That's oversaturated soils. But it's saying when we look at soil in the root zone soil moisture potential, this portion of the field is going to be, if this layer, as we validate it, is going to be where we want to watch for starting the watering process again. So it's a little bit of difference. It's a little bit of a look ahead. All right. So those imagery pieces, soil moisture probes, these are all key pieces to success of managing a drip irrigation system. So Agronomy 365, I mentioned this company. This is who we partner with on tissue and soil sampling. This company is invested. They trying to understand and work with drip irrigation. We love the data. They're bringing new tools to the table all the time. And I'll try to go through these. I don't know how I'm doing on time. Go through these pretty quick. So the Plant Complete tissue samples that we use. Here's an example of a tissue report. There's a lot of numbers, a lot of data at that point in time in the tissue. And again, this is one data point, part of the puzzle. Kurt also mentioned on these reports with tissue test, nutrient balance. Sometimes more of a good thing is not good, right? We can excessively bring things out of balance. And when we do tissue sampling with Agronomy 365, we are getting these data points for you and we're assessing them. Here's what I wanted to talk about a little bit more. It's a mid-rib test. This is how technology is changing. Agronomy 365 just brought about this test. I don't know, it's been a couple months maybe. And they're testing the midrib versus the tissue of the leaf. And so what's the point of the midrib? So they're evaluating and bringing this data forward because the soil moisture potential in the root zone potentially giving us a look ahead. That's what this midrib test is going to do. It's going to give us, hopefully, they're stating 1 to 2 weeks look into the future of what might show up in the tissue, right? So having more data, giving us more watch outs further ahead gives us more time to react and put that agronomy to action. So we love what this lab is doing. They're innovating and they're moving us forward in a good way, which is why we partner with them. I don't expect you to read this data, but from a discussion purposes, how do we take this tissue that we're doing, putting the effort into and soil and put it to use? So when we dump it in a spreadsheet for this grower, this is showing V4 all the way to R4 in his fields, and the tissue sampling is done. We can evaluate trends, okay, through the growing season. That's a valuable piece to look at versus just one tissue or soil sample, right? How has it been moving through the year? This piece down at the bottom is extremely valuable. You can't read the data, that's okay. But at Agronomy 365, we have levels for high yield growers, an average grower, and then a watch out range. With all the tissue sampling that they're doing, they're compiling this data based on the yields that these growers are achieving and saying, this is what over time this group of high yield growers have been seeing for nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, micros in the plant at that time, right? So we're constantly looking if we want to assess at R4 for soybeans, a nitrogen level reading in the plant of 6 is what the high yield growers are achieving. We can look at yours and we can say, where are we fitting into this box? Is this something we need to be putting more energy into? And again, that's a value that we get by using this lab. And we want to be able to take this data, look at what's being done, and help you make decisions on how to act on it. Here's a blown up version of a benchmark chart, and this is for corn. It's the same thing. Each growth stage, we're evaluating to larger data sets of what other growers are achieving. Miles will talk a little bit more about some of that a little bit later today. Soil test analysis. There's lots of cool things come in the soil test arena with biology and managing the activity of the soil. And that all goes into the component of in-season testing and how can we react. So trying to wrap things up here. So as we shift to postseason, obviously Kurt talked about system maintenance. For those that don't have a system, NutraDrip is there to walk alongside you and make sure your system is maintained and that process is done well. Obviously, we're going to evaluate yield data and all the notes and information you've taken from that year. There are some neat platforms out there that we're looking at that use AI and other high-end evaluation tools that will hopefully continue to bring us into the future. AI is part of the world. Have you all seen the AI agronomists that are out there on different websites? So I might have to retire sooner than I wanted to with artificial intelligence. So here's what I said. Then you can take a week off and jump right into preseason again. So postseason's a brief time to gather that data, but preseason's where all the action takes place to help make a successful end season. So we're quickly turning around back to that evaluation stage and putting a plan together. With that, I'm back to where I started, is I hope I've portrayed the value of agronomy and the value NutraDrip wants to bring to you and your farms with your systems and those that don't have systems. If you're thinking about a system, we'd love to walk alongside with you in those acres and start some of this. The smarter we are before we put that system in, hopefully the quicker we can reach your goals. But I look forward to agronomy discussions. I'll be around. Ask me any questions. We look forward to following back up with you with a more formal, new offerings on the agronomy front. Thank you much for your time.